Hello and welcome to Tennessee Football's practice facility. I'm Ryan Sylvia. This is Noah Taylor. We are with VolReport.com on the Rivals Network, and it's time for UTEP. And it comes at a funny time though, because Tennessee is obviously coming off that big loss on the road to Georgia. So it's a situation where Tennessee now has to try to flush that game. And you can say it as much as you can, but it's tough to kind of turn your attention for a game that Tennessee's expected to win by 1,000,000 points from a game that leaves a bad taste in their mouth. But we met with Josh Heupel today. We met with two players, tight end Miles Kitselman, linebacker Jalen Smith, and got to ask them kind of their perspectives on things. We'll start with Josh Heupel. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you mentioned UTEP. Coming off of the week that Tennessee had, it seems like, going back to really that Oklahoma game, or really the Arkansas game till now, everything that Tennessee's standing in the college football playoff, how this game will impact it. You don't really have that conversation this week. Certainly Tennessee, is kind of in sit and watch mode and see how the rest of the country shakes out this weekend. But, if there is one storyline that comes from this game, obviously UTEP, probably one of the worst teams in the FBS, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
But one storyline coming out of the game is their head coach, and his first season there was Austin Peay's coach.
Mm-hmm.
When Austin Peay came here last year and put up a fight against Tennessee in that game for a little bit before Tennessee pulled away there. It's going to be interesting kind of seeing how that carries over, if that gives anybody an edge in this game at all. I remember it kind of being a little bit of a chippy game, so you got to think that's one that Tennessee players probably remember. And if you're coming into this game, you mentioned it there, flushing it and maybe being a little bit angry with how last weekend was, and maybe want to impress the playoff committee a little bit before you go to Vanderbilt at the end of the week. I mean, this could be certainly one of those games. So if there's something you want to be, I don't know, maybe fired up as a fan or interested in, I think that's one of them. And Josh Heupel asked about it today. Any similarities on film? Said you could draw some stuff from what they did at Austin Peay. It's a lot of the same staff, obviously the same head coach. I don't know how much players went over there, but Josh Heupel said the personnel's different.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of at least saying he expects it to be a little bit of a different game than that was. And certainly for Tennessee's case, they hope it is. But that's something that I think is kind of interesting going into this game. If you're trying to look for something to maybe be a little bit motivating, and certainly coming off of a loss, you would think would be enough to motivate Tennessee as well.
Yeah, if there's a time to run the score up, it's these next 2 weeks for Tennessee. You have to make a statement, you have to make a case, and you have the opportunity against two teams. Obviously, Vanderbilt, I think most people rightfully are kind of marking that one as a win, but at the same time, it's not the Vanderbilt of the past.
Right.
Tennessee's going to have to show up and win that game. I don't think it's a game that they can just show up and win by 30 like they have in the past, but these are two situations for where Tennessee's going to maybe need to make a little bit of a statement, and they'll have the opportunity to, as it'll be interesting to see where they're ranked on Tuesday in the college football playoff rankings. I asked Josh Heupel about the wide receivers, though. They've been kind of hit or miss, it feels like, this year. There's been some games where it feels like you have different guys playing really well, and you have some games where it feels like they're not necessarily showing up, and it felt like maybe a tale of two halves for Tennessee's wide receiver room against Georgia, where early in the game, as Josh Heupel talked about, they did a much better job on those third downs than they did a year ago against Georgia, and he said that was one of the bigger storylines in 2023 against Georgia with Joe Milton and company, is the receivers didn't do a great job on third down, and Tennessee's offense couldn't stay on the field. Well, you look at Tennessee's scoring drives early in that game, they start the game 5 for 5 on third downs, and a big reason for that is, of course, I think at least one of them was a Dylan Sampson run, but also Nico delivering the ball where it needs to be, and receivers getting separation, making good plays, and having nice hands, and that did help Tennessee jump out to an early lead. But then you kind of look progressing into the game, and it feels like they maybe dropped off a little bit towards the end, and that's not all on them. Sometimes it is the O-line not letting guys get home in other situations, and that is something Heupel said. He was like, I've said it a million times, but it's got to be all 11 playing as one. But the wide receiver room, it's been an interesting one to watch. I think Tennessee fans, maybe not Tennessee fans, but I think a lot of outsiders kind of looked at what Jalin Hyatt and Cedric Tillman did in 2022 and just marked it up to the system and said that'll just kind of be something that continues to happen. And Tennessee hasn't had anyone that's kind of stepped up to that level yet of Jalin Hyatt, which obviously you're not going to have a Biletnikoff winner every year, but even a Cedric Tillman from 21 or when he was healthy in 22, and just kind of replacing that production. So that'll be something I think that will be worth keeping tabs on. But with UTEP coming to town, a game that Tennessee feels like it should have a good advantage in, maybe you do get to see guys like Mike Matthews, who's a true freshman 5-star, make a little bit more of an impact in a game and kind of make his case for 2025. And, Hype Boss asked about that a little bit and kind of said, we're a long way from 2025, but still, maybe an opportunity to see what Tennessee has at the future of that position, other positions along the field. What do you think about what the player said, though?
Yeah, you mentioned the passing game. Miles Kitzelman, the transfer tight end for Tennessee, he's been a big part of that. He's been one of the more consistent guys when the ball has been thrown his way. Got to talk to him today. I think a play that, is overshadowed by the loss and what that loss meant for Tennessee in the grand scheme. But I mean, his touchdown, on that to give Tennessee the lead on their opening drive, I thought was, pretty interesting play with the way what they ran there. Obviously, Jackson Moy comes in, blocks for him, but gives us a little bit of insight there because we got to talk to Miles Kitzelman, and he said that Georgia's defense lined up in something different than what they were expecting. They rolled with it anyway, and the gap he was supposed to go to was filled up, so he had really no other choice than to jump over. But I thought kind of did his best impression of a running back there. Pretty interesting play. I don't know if we'll see it again this year, but certainly one that kind of gave Tennessee some early momentum. Again, that I think Tennessee wins that game. We're probably talking a little bit more about the statement that play made early for them, but interesting nonetheless. I thought it was funny. He was asked today if he's the last time he's rushed for a touchdown, and he joked, and I guess he was being serious about this, but in the third grade, he said if you go back and watch his Pee Wee film from third grade, he had 22 rushing touchdowns that year. But
Dylan Sampson run for his money.
It could have been, on Saturday. So, I thought that was an interesting play and really an interesting perspective from him. And again, probably one where we're talking a little bit more about today if that game goes in Tennessee's favor.
Yeah, I also thought it was interesting. He talked about just kind of wanting to turn the page. He's like, man, I'm done talking about Georgia. It's in the past. And I think that, he's a senior leader on this team. He's new to Tennessee, but you can tell he's kind of stepped up, obviously in that tight end room where he's been the main guy, but kind of in the offense as a whole as well. I think he's a guy that a lot of younger guys on this team look to for leadership, and he's trying to leave it in the past. It happened. They hate it. They want to grow from it. They want to learn from it. They don't like what happened, but he's ready to move on. He's ready to talk UTEP, then Vanderbilt, then whatever it looks like, whether it's a bowl game or whether it is the playoffs, but he's ready to move on. And Jalen Smith kind of talked the same thing, wasn't necessarily as abrupt about it, where it was like, I'm done talking about it, let's do something else. But he was also like, we got to turn the page. You got to learn from what happened against Georgia, but also that's in the past. Let's move forward and see what UTEP week holds. But it'll be a challenge. It's day one of it on Monday. We'll see what it looks like tomorrow, where we'll be back here talking to some assistant coaches. I think we have linebackers coach Willie Minge, and then tight ends coach Alec Anglin, and then a handful of players as well. So more coverage leading up to UTEP, basketball coverage, baseball coverage, everything you need over at barreport.com. Links to everything you need is in the description. Thank you for watching.